For the benefit of those in the group that have not met you before, I have had that benefit. Would you please introduce yourself to the group and your position with the public defender?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Cassie Nelson. I am the Regional Attorney Manager for the Waukesha region of the Public Defender's Office. So I'm primarily in the Jefferson County office, but you might see me floating around, including in West Bend.
Welcome. Appreciate your attendance here this morning on behalf of the public defender. Then I will note this meeting has been properly posted by the clerk's office. We'll begin with a moment of silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's turn our attention to the minutes of February 10th of 2026, which were attached or included in your packet. Any corrections to the content of those minutes?
I have one correction. Just to list me as attending the last meeting, please.
So I believe we need a motion on that. Is that correct?
Change the minutes?
Yes.
As long as I think everybody agrees to it, I don't think
One second.
We'll take, for purposes of the minutes, then we'll note Chief Daring made the motion to include Agent Cannon as present at the prior meeting. Second from Mr. Sager. Good morning, Sheriff. Any opposition or, any further discussion regarding that motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No opposition, any abstention? None. All right, we will correct the minutes with that. Thank you for catching that. Other than that, with the motion, the minutes then will stand as corrected. Then let's turn to our discussion this morning. We welcome back our partners from Justice Management Institute to continue our discussion of strategic planning. Good morning, Gabby. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning. All right, I am going to share my screen, which always takes me a second, so bear with me. Okay, can you guys see that screen presentation?
Can.
Okay, great. And you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, hey, everybody. It's really nice to see you all, even if you're on a little screen. I'm sorry we can't be there with you today, but we're very excited to be back and sharing these plans with you. We think you've done some great work in putting these together and can't wait to get more feedback and see where they go from here. So just as a quick recap, for anyone who doesn't remember, we had the last CJCC meeting. We went over the priority number 1 and we broke into groups and worked on those objectives. Then Gabby and I held work group sessions for the other 2 priority areas. And then from there, we had 2 virtual meetings with those groups to kind of go through the plans again, follow up and see how some revisions need to be made. And then we sent out all 3 plans to the appropriate groups, allowed for more feedback and some additional edits. So the versions you're going to see today have been reviewed several times with these groups. And there's just some key themes before we share the plans and start digging into them. I just wanted to share with you all. First of all, we think this went really well. Like, strategic planning is not easy, and it's especially hard in this kind of cross-system strategic planning effort. You know, it's very different from one of you doing strategic planning with your staff, where this is, you know, their everyday work. You guys are all here as leaders of your own areas of the field, and you're coming together to compromise on one solid plan moving forward. So this is not easy, and you guys did a great job. There was a lot of participation, a lot of engagement in the work groups. So we're very happy with how it's going so far and really excited to share these plans. So we hope to keep the momentum going. And then just some themes I wanted to talk about before we jump in, because there's a lot of similarities across all 3 plans. One is data collection, which is wonderful. You know, I'm always pushing for using data, so it's great to see across all 3 plans. And yes, I might have been trying to emphasize that in each of the work groups, but everybody seemed very eager to collect data and look at data, so that's great. And then using that data and other information to share with the CJCC, helping to inform the council on different matters that concern you, and further educating the council on, things, possible initiatives or things you might do in the future to help with some of those challenges. So those are kind of the themes across all three plans. One thing I noted after we put these three plans together is that they're actually pretty short. They're all essentially 1-year plans. And I know originally we talked about having a 2 to 3 year plan, which is typical. But you're not really a typical CJCC in that you're very new. So I think this is a great strategy, just having a 1-year plan. A lot of these initiatives that you've come up with are kind of shorter term goals. So spreading it out over 3 years would just be kind of silly because they're not going to take that long, but they are really important steps to moving on to the next things you want to do. So for example, like in another jurisdiction, they might put in their strategic plan, they want to create a pretrial services program. Of course, that's going to take 2 to 3 years. You don't have anything like that that's going to take that long. So I think this works well for you, but think about that as you look at the plans. If you'd rather have a longer term strategic plan, we can talk about, some additional ways to stretch it out or add more things, but I do think this is a great way to go. One caveat is it also means that in a year you'll be doing something like this again. So just something to think about. And then another thing to consider is the amount of time needed for some of these tasks and objectives, time of yours as CJCC members, also time from staff, especially Brad. It's hard to balance the urge to get things done with thinking about what's actually achievable. So consider that you're all very busy, and even if you're not the person in charge of a task, somebody else is, and it's not their day job. So think about, as you look at these plans, this is kind of above and beyond what people are typically asked to do. And so some of them are going to take longer than it seems like they should take. And another example of that I just want to talk about before we jump in is sometimes some of these tasks look like they take 2 months when in actuality it should be like an hour-long meeting to come up with some terms or whatever it is the task is. But it's based on the amount of like your schedule for your meetings. So since you meet every other month, it might look like it takes 2 months for an activity, but that's just because you meet every other month. So it's going to take 2 months, even if it in reality only takes 1 hour. So it's just something to think about as you look at the timelines. And then again, about Brad, he and I have talked a little bit. I know that a lot of this work will fall on him. He understands, and Brad, I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like he's understanding of that. And welcoming this conversation today and kind of thinking about what do we want to task Brad with all these plans. But for now, we've put his name in where we think he could be really helpful. And then also you're going to see Elisha's name in here. We did get a chance to speak with him. He was very wonderful to talk to, seemed very eager to help and willing to help. But of course, we have to manage his time as well and not give him too many tasks. But he seems very helpful and also a real asset to the council. It's kind of rare to have someone that is willing to work on data for a CJCC, so I think you should feel very grateful for that. Okay, so for today's agenda, we're just going to go through each of the plans. We're going to have each of the plans presented individually, talk about them individually, get your feedback, and then Gabby and I are going to take what we learned today, change them in any way that's needed, send them out again, and put together a full draft of a strategic plan. So there's going to be a lot more meat on the bones. It's not just going to be these 3 action plans. It's going to be a lot more description and information. And then after today, we're going to do what I just said. We're going to put together this plan for your review by May 11th is our deadline. And then you're going to have about 2 weeks or a little over 2 weeks to provide your feedback, read it over, give us your feedback. We'll incorporate any additional edits then for the very final version that will come out just in advance of your June 9th meeting. And hopefully by that time, everybody's happy with how it looks and it'll be a quick approval. But of course, if you need more time or decide to make changes, that'll be a good time to have that discussion at the June 9th meeting. And just so you know, JMI does not plan to be at that meeting, but if you need us there for any reason, just let us know and we can hop on. But our hope is to have a lot of discussion today, get your feedback. And if there's anything that you think of after leaving today, please just email us or call us. We're happy to chat more about it and add anything else that needs to go into these plans. Okay, so you should each have the action plans in front of you. You do, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Because we thought about putting them on the screen, but they're going to be teeny tiny, and then you also have our faces, so I figured that's just not going to work. So you have the plans in front of you. We asked for volunteers from each of the work groups to present the plans. Julie and Kenneth graciously volunteered to do those for their groups. And we're just going to have them kind of summarize each plan. They're not going to go into too much detail, but you can read the detail on the plan in front of you. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Gabby to walk us through the first one, the strengthening the CJCC.
So thank you so much, Amy, and good morning, everyone. So if everyone remembers when we were there on site in February, this is the plan that we constructed together. Everyone went into groups together and we kind of worked on this. So if there's, and then everyone provided updates through email. But if anyone from the groups wants to speak up or elaborate on any of the topics that I discuss as I kind of go through each objective, feel free to chime in. I just want to make sure that it's best represented to everyone. But the first action plan is strengthen the CJCC, and the goal we decided on was support the newly formed CJCC to build trust, improve communication, and ensure its ongoing value and sustainability. And something to keep in mind is so each objective builds off the one before it. And so the goal is building this strong foundation at the CJCC. And as you'll see, the plan starts in July 1st, 2026 and works all the way until next July. So it's about a year-long plan, as Amy mentioned before. The first objective is establishing a unified vision, purpose, and role for the CJCC and its members, and to help focus the CJCC and build a strong foundation to guide the rest of the work. Some of the tactics in this objective would be doing a pre-work questionnaire that will be sent to the members to get a better understanding of what everyone is looking for the purpose and the vision and the role for the council. And that's going to be the first tactic, and that's coming up July 1st. So everyone pay attention for that. And then there will be a questionnaire portion of that, and everyone's participation in that will be really essential. You guys have been doing a great job of answering all our emails and participating in all our groups and the surveys and all that. So we really appreciate that and think that momentum moving forward would be great to kind of get things moving. Then you'll draft the vision, and then finally there'll be a presentation to the CJCC to approve and admit whatever everyone decides on to the bylaws. The second objective is looking to determine consensus for the CJCC leadership and governance structure and who leads and how. And so that's looking at the vice chair and chair or the co-chair models. So the CJCC will get an overview of the two different types of structures. Then you guys can vote on the structures, define the roles, and then again, revise and add those additions to the bylaws and update those changes. And again, this shouldn't feel like these are huge tasks, but how Amy explained it, that the goal is to really build off of each other. And with how meetings are arranged, that it should, it will take a bit of time, but it shouldn't feel like that these are these year-long tasks with these specific ones. The third objective was build capacity for data sharing and utilization to guide the work at the CJCC. And so the goal is really formalize data sharing through data sharing agreements and define the KPIs. And something to keep in mind, again, Brad and Elijah are going to be key players in this entire plan, but especially Elijah with making sure that the data agreements and access to data, he'll be a great resource there. First, everyone will draft and circulate the data sharing agreements. The CJCC will discuss and establish questions that the council wants answered with data, establish 5 KPIs, and then collect the KPIs and start to produce quarterly summaries to ensure that the use of data is ongoing and that it's not just a one-time thing, but that this is something that will continue to inform your decisions throughout the year. And the last objective was develop and implement a communications plan to enhance both internal and external communications. The goal with this is really to build strong communication plan within the CJCC, but also with the public, so that the council's work and messaging is visible and consistent and credible. And so having an established plan really helps to just make things more streamlined and efficient. The first step here would be establish a communications working group, dedicate CJCC time to define what the key messages you want to present are, and then eventually develop and adopt a written communications plan that covers the webpage, meeting materials, distribution timelines, and external messaging. And then the work group, this can be an ongoing thing, and they'll continue to reconvene to revise the plan as needed. So these were the 4 objectives, and again, everyone hopefully has this in front of them. You can see that the outputs and the deliverables are on there as well, of what this will kind of look like in a tangible sense. But hopefully this is just kind of a great foundation to get things moving to strengthen the CJCC. And if anyone has any questions, or again, anyone from any of the groups want to elaborate, please feel free to chime in. Or if you're looking at this and you see some edits, feel free to email us later if you'd prefer to do it offline, but we're open to feedback right now or offline. So thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. Point of clarification, are we doing discussion after each plan is presented, or discussion of all 3 plans once we hear the presentation of all 3 plans? Amy, did you have a plan?
So I was thinking discussion after each plan, each individual plan, but it's really up to you. If you have a preference, I'm happy to do whatever works best.
I do not have a preference. Group, do you?
I think it makes most sense to discuss each topic while it's fresh in our minds.
Great suggestion. All right, so then open the floor for discussion as to this priority area. It is certainly possible that we have done well for ourselves and that we have a quality finished or close to finished product. The point of our discussion is to revisit our work. If you recall, this was the priority that we worked on ourselves as a group, but to revisit our work, see it as a whole, give ourselves the opportunity to discuss it and ask for revisions or talk through revisions for JMI to work through that on our behalf after today. I wondered what everyone thought about the timeline.
Very measured. So if this is for a long-term health of the council, I think it's very measured, certainly attainable within that timeline. See the questionnaire.
I agree with Chief. It's measured. My only concern is momentum. We were what, 18 months in, 16 months in. Can we sustain another 12 months of talking about how we're going to do something before we get to actually doing something? I mean, these are a lot of highly paid, smart people who are busy. Like, that's my only worry.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think waiting till the end of the year to finally determine our structure and our agreed upon bylaws does seem, I mean, I know it's because we're not meeting that frequently. But I just don't know if that drags it on too long.
Amy, do you know what the standard is for a CJCC running off the ground where they're running with their priorities aside from like the work that we're doing currently?
I don't know that there's any standard. I mean, I think it's pretty typical of this conversation that you're having about, how quickly are things going to get done, I think is common because you want to get things done, you want to see things happen, but it does take a lot of time because you're all busy, very busy doing other things. And it's hard to collaborate across the system. I mean, it's just not a simple process. So I think it's typical to have this conversation, and I don't think there's a standard of how long it takes. So I know that doesn't really answer your question, but hopefully you feel like it's more normal.
I think it maybe gives comfortability that it's not something that requires us to expedite making our priorities go fast. So in a way, it kind of answered my question, yeah.
And if I can add, Gabby and I put in a lot of these timelines, and we're just making our best guesses based on what our experiences with other councils. So you might think for your council, you could do it a lot quicker, and we're happy to make those changes. You do not have to use the dates we put in there. We just find it's easier to give you some dates to work with, and then you edit. And if something like coming up with the governance structure is something you want to do right away, I do think you could have that done by, in your next meeting. That could be what you talk about, and you could have it done shortly after that. But as we looked across all three plans, we had to figure out how do we not have you doing all the tasks in one single meeting. So just kind of trying to balance all of these action plans. But it really is up to you all. If you really want to prioritize some of the tactics and move up those deadlines, there's nothing wrong with that.
I think it speaks to the quality of the organizations that we have in Washington County that is so little urgency in moving forward, that we have the luxury to space this out through this kind of time period. It speaks to the quality of the individuals at the head of those organizations. It speaks to the expectations that our constituents have had that we do things well. And so I'm glad that there was not an immediate acute need to have a CJCC formed because of some terrible mishap or event. At the same time, that is our goal, is to be prepared in case anything happens, to bring everybody together ahead of time to collaborate and establish the better relationships to deal with anything if it does come up. So while it looks like it's a long way out, and we may decide to pull some of those dates in, I think it speaks to the good quality of the criminal justice system in Washington County that we already have.
Yeah, if I can just respond to that, I think that's a really good point. A lot of CJCCs are created to fix a problem. So historically, they were created often because of jail overcrowding, and they needed to build a new jail or figure out how to reduce their jail population. So a lot of councils, that was their initial focus. And so they didn't have this long planning process to really collect information and learn what the problems are so they could tackle them. I think because you're in this situation, you do have this time to kind of look at your system, look at what you want to work on, and be a little more measured about it. So it's different from some of the other councils that we've worked with in that way, which I think is a benefit to you.
I know Attorney Stern's name on most of the tasks to do. Perhaps a question on timelines. Certainly has a full agenda as well. Comfortable are you with that timeline?
Well, we'll do what we gotta do.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
The other thing to factor in is that this timeline for this priority area is not in isolation. There are two other priorities that the group has identified as well, and that we'll speak to, shortly. And so I don't think this group is going to focus only on one priority and shelf the other two. I would expect that the group is going to want those priorities to be moving forward together in some fashion. And so work will be happening on all three to a certain degree contemporaneously, which will tax not only the CJCC, but the work groups, the coordinator, and other ancillary staff that are supporting those areas. So when I asked Amy and Gabby about how they came up with the proposed timelines, they were educating me on their experience with CJCCs and how they perform the work in these priority areas and factoring that in. We can certainly make a commitment. We can certainly revise them or we can identify areas of the plan that we think can be accomplished sooner and make those priority tasks that we want done on a shorter time frame. And we can also, as a group, indicate that we like to meet target deadlines and want to ensure that when we set a target deadline, that as a group, we would like to make that a deadline that we meet, not see it sort of a revolving extension that continues to be pushed for whatever reason. So we can hold ourselves accountable that way as well. Very difficult thing to do, especially across systems, but certainly a commitment that would be worthwhile.
I just wanted to add one comment in response to what the judge just said. Gabby and I talked about putting together like a timeline to like a visual to show you where these are all landing in coordination with the other plans. But it just became too cumbersome and we were struggling with how to share that. So that is something we could do when the strategic plan comes out. It could have in it kind of a Gantt chart of when things are happening and how they're happening within all three plans so that you can kind of see the deadlines and if it makes sense.
In the interest of not spending too much more time sitting around looking at each other, I'm going to move that we accept the draft goals for strengthening the CJCC for priority area 1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion as to priority area 1? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that takes care of priority area 1. On to priority area 2.
Great. All right, Julie, you're up.
Okay, great. This particular priority and this group engage folks who are not part of the CJCC, but that are leaders or people who have decision-making capabilities within the criminal justice system and behavioral health. And I just want to say that I think it was a good couple of meetings, a lot of energy from those folks on once they sort of figured out what we were trying to accomplish and what this was all about. A lot of energy. We almost had to rein them in a little bit because they're ready to like build new programs and start new stuff. And so we had to slow that down a little bit. But I think this is a good starting place, especially because I think, when you say behavioral health, it's, really this such a large encompassing area of focus. So really our initial priority goal is to strengthen the behavioral health continuum and improve coordination between, the justice and the health system to enhance public safety and improve outcomes. So we came up with 3 goals. One, very simple is really just we wanted to establish this work group and get it running and meeting consistently and creating a framework so that we can strengthen the justice and health system coordination. You'll see in there a number of tactics that are pretty self-explanatory around creating that framework and creating that structure, just so we can get everybody on board of like what the purpose is and what the goal is of this work group. Secondly, the objective is to produce a sequential intercept model map, so a SIM map, and very exciting in that the state of Wisconsin Department of Justice already has this training and this mapping process, and they had already reached out to Washington County to engage us in this process, and it is scheduled for September. And so the group was very excited about this. And essentially, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on what this is all about. I will be learning, but they will walk through and work the group through sort of mapping out what is happening in Washington County around our behavioral health services and our criminal justice, so that we can identify either the gaps that exist and the priority areas that we want to focus on. So I really think that this process will help give us a beginning map to sort of say, well, what do we want to focus on first? And then the third goal really was to look at data, right? As Amy talked about, we're not consistently, and I think this group has talked about a number of times, we've not consistently looking at the data in the different systems to say, you know, how many of people are affected by this, what is the main issue, who are the high utilizers, where are they coming into either care or into the criminal justice system. And so we really wanted to start creating that so that we could have some good information to help us make data-informed decisions. Because again, I think it's pretty natural, you know, everybody in these systems are already doing the work, and they're pretty innovative and want to solve problems. And so sometimes we try to solve a problem without knowing all of the information. So we wanted to create essentially this framework, right, around the math and then the data that supports where we should be focusing our efforts on improvement and addressing gaps. So you'll see in here sort of the dates around completion of some of that. There's a feedback loop that we've implemented so that we can be reporting our progress back to the CJCC, and you guys can give us input and ask questions. And eventually, right, I would imagine after this year of this working on this priority area, we will have identified a handful of areas that we want to work on, and that will be the second strategic, you know, planning process with the CJCC. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
I'd make a motion to accept priority area 2.
Second.
Presented.
Additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we have priority area 2 completed as well. Then turning to priority area 3.
So this work group discussed the reducing of failures to appear in the data with the pretrial monitoring strategies to improve public safety and overall the cost of the criminal justice system. We also had 3 objectives: to understand what the issue is, exploring possible solutions, and then propose the recommendations to the CJCC. In summary, the tactics overall are pretty consistent to creating a timeline that's going to review this with a work group to agree on clear definitions of failure to appear and failure to comply. The biggest thing is that the data sharing agreements between all the agencies identify relevant data and sources that make sense to review together and then to make recommendations and decisions. Analyze that data that impacts the public safety and the costs that the criminal justice system is currently taking. A lot of the decisions in the criminal justice system are backed and supported by evidence-based practices. So reviewing those and connecting with other counties to see what has been effective or what some of those failures have been for them. Reviewing the results are going to be key to all of these tactics, and then summarize the data and then prepare a final outline for the CJCC that has the overall impact of failure to appear, failure to comply, and then make a recommendation to the overall committee. Overall, the target goals are spread out. I think the biggest overtake on that will be taking the data from all the agencies, compiling that data and see where that data is going to take us. The big overall is again going to fall on Attorney Stern and Elijah for taking on that task. Any questions?
Getting the two workers, who's all representative on that group?
Amy, do you have the quick roster that you could answer the sheriff's question as to the pretrial work group?
Oh, I should know that off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me, but it looks like Gabby's gonna say,
I was-
say something.
Yes.
I was there, Captain Lehman was there, DA Bratz was there, Agent Cannon was there, Andy Freeman was there,
Mhm.
Amy was there, Gabby was there.
Captain Lane.
I got Captain Lehman. Who am I missing?
Gil, did you say?
Attorney Parham was there, yes.
Okay.
Sounds
And
about
then
right.
Judge Leach, I believe.
Oh, yes, Judge Leach was
yeah.
there as well.
And I believe that's everyone. Or sorry, Andy Freeman was he at the pre?
Yep, we got that one.
Okay, just clarifying.
Thank you, Gabby.
Perfect. Mhm.
Were you looking for the members for the behavioral health as well, Sheriff? Okay. Yep.
I think it was well represented from all of them.
I have that list. Is that what I can also share these with the group after.
I think we have the answer we need, Gabby. Thank you.
Perfect.
If there aren't any questions for Agent Cannon, then I'll take a motion to open for more discussion.
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Further discussion as to the proposal for priority area 3?
Somewhat pretty. What type of data?
Good question, Chief.
In
What did you
in
think of it?
Curious.
in which area? The failure
Simplicity of it, but really boils down to what it is. So I was just curious under the understanding of what data. Just conceptually thinking rest versus appearance. You found that on the get-go, that seems very.
I think it's where it starts, yeah. Getting people to show up and making sure that they're coming in, not wasting calendar time or the attorney's times in the room, just to be able to process these cases out.
Right. So if we look at the two categories of issues we're looking at here in the pretrial compliance, it's failing to show up and then failing to comply with conditions while your case is pending, right? The failing to show up issue is a couple of data points. Which type of cases where they have a pending case are they most likely to not show up for court? And then are there certain static or dynamic factors that we know about this population that is most likely to contribute to reasons they don't show up? Okay. So previously this group had a subgroup that addressed this came up in the issue of the courthouse security conversation that happened where I shared some data that we gathered about failures to appear as it relates to criminal traffic offenses, driving on a revoked license, and the criminal operating without a license. Statistically speaking, I pulled some data to demonstrate that that population has a high rate of failing to appear for their first court appearance. So we worked with the sheriff's office to discuss some strategies to implement to target that particular population. But so that would be some data that would be highly relevant to it. As to the pretrial compliance, then it's the same analysis, right? Which type of cases are charged and then have the highest rate of bail jumping, either for failing to comply with court-ordered conditions of bond or then failing to appear for future court appearances after that initial court appearance. That's the data we're kind of looking for, very broad.
Thank you.
And I just want to, Gabby and Amy have reminded us of the importance of data. And I have to take a moment to reiterate it as to this. I mean, it's important to all of our priorities, but as to this priority, specifically, there are a number of strategies available in these particular areas, and we can spend a lot of time and money implementing the strategies. But if we don't know how to effectively implement them and target the correct population, we're spending money, arguably probably taxpayer money, to implement a strategy, and we have no solid confidence that it is likely to create the outcome that we're looking for to increase public safety. So that's the importance of making sure that we understand the issue, and then we are crafting a solution that targets the issue, so we're effectively utilizing these dollars. There's lots of strategies that they use across the state on these particular topics, but making sure they're a fit for Washington County is certainly a necessary step. I think I had a motion. Yes, did we have okay, further discussion?
Can I just ask a question? Does everybody feel like this plan is the objectives are meeting the goal, the stated goal? I mean, is this what you were looking for? I'd like to just hear from anybody, whether they were in the group or not in the group. How does it feel to all of you?
I think we're looking at the first couple of words of the goal to reduce failures to appear. And then looking at the objectives, I think the first underlying topic would be understanding why we're not having these individuals appear. I think, to my point though, I feel like the goal directly aligns with the objectives. We have to understand what the issue is, how to correct those issues, and provide guidance or some kind of a structure that doesn't impact, any of the processes that are already in place, and then make those recommendations to affect those goals. So I feel like it's a very broad priority, just because it has such a large impact on most, if not all, cases that are coming through Washington County. Whether that's failures to appear or non-compliance, I think just in general on the docket, I think that's a lot of an undertaking for all the cases that come through Washington County. So I feel like the goal aligns well with the objectives.
Okay, because I know this was a high priority for all of you, so I just want to make sure that it feels right to you. That now's the time to make changes if something's missing, or if you think it's going in the wrong direction. Now's the time to talk about it. I think it's a very strong action plan. I'm very happy with it, but it doesn't matter what I think. So I just want to make sure I hear from you all if you're not happy with it. And the same for all three plans. I just wanted to chime in now since we've talked about them all.
I just have a question more around my own knowledge. So I know in the behavioral health, area, we talked about, there's some natural things that are just going to happen outside of a formal presentation to CJC of like, this is what we want to do and this is how we're going to do it. Because, there's already things happening right around quality improvement and coordination and things like that. So, we spent a lot of time talking about that and sort of how to, manage that. You don't want to stop progress, right? Is there a space in pretrial compliance for improvement outside of a formal, I'm looking at sort of the last recommendation of like, what do we want to do, right? Is there something that in the next year plus months that would happen naturally potentially? Or is it like a review of the work and then a presentation of what we could do about it?
So there's no, unlike Health and Human Services, there is no single entity that wholesale addresses that issue in a like manner. So there's no one perfectly suited to tackle those issues and drive the work in a similar way that your department is. So that creates a gap in it. What has happened and is happening is some work towards some of those issues on an ad hoc basis. Certainly between the courts, the DA's office, the courts, the sheriff's office, some of those conversations are happening by way of some data gathering because of the diversion programs gathering data that may have overlapping data that pertains to this issue. So because they're gathering data for that purpose, can we gather data for this purpose as well and help the CJCC out? So those conversations are happening with the intent of this might help the CJCC and share the information with the CJCC, not to overstep, not to invade, but to work in collaboration with. But it lacks that overarching sharing of information, coordination of services, buy-in from all of the stakeholders, infrastructure. And some of it we're testing a little bit. Does this work? Do we like it? Is it moving the needle in the right direction? That kind of stuff. So yes, there is some innovation and improvement that's being tested and worked out informally, I suppose, amongst the stakeholders, I think is the best way I would describe it. Anyone else feel free to chip in.
Yeah, I can tell you, Julie, I mean, my office, I mean, we're not just waiting on the CJCC, right? We take a look at cases, we take a look at ways that we can be more efficient. I mean, I can tell you, we're in our office now, currently, we're looking at a potential policy change on criminal traffic that may assist in fewer failure to appear. Nothing's official yet, and I haven't spoken to the judges on it yet, so I don't want to, introduce it here. But we're constantly looking at ways that we can improve, our office as well as how we interact with the court system. So, I'm not suggesting that we're trying to keep anybody out of the loop on anything, but there's certainly things that we look at daily to see if we can improve efficiency within the court system. I mean, I know that even early on, I think CJC had already started, and I think even prior to CJCC, we were, working with the sheriff's office and the court system on improving more cost-effective ways of bringing people into court for missed appearances. So we're constantly reviewing this. But I think it's certainly helpful to obtain more data, have a better understanding of why, as Kenny said, why folks are missing court, specifically on what types of cases that we're seeing this the most, or that we're seeing the most non-compliance. But that doesn't mean we're sitting back and just waiting for CJC to tell us, what to do. We're constantly looking at this.
If I could contribute to that, part of the downside of working individually is that I can look at what my data shows in terms of what's happening on the court side. I have no idea what his office's data looks like, nor do I know necessarily. I have some working knowledge because I'm familiar with that employment and that office, but I don't have a great understanding as if I make a change this way in terms of operations for the court system, what are the outcomes for this stakeholder? What are the outcomes for the sheriff's office? Unless I make sure that we have those conversations and work through that. If we implement these processes, what are the consequences on these stakeholders, intended or unintended? So those conversations are really important when you make changes in a large system, to talk through those and make sure that you're getting to the outcome that you're actually looking for and not running into unintended consequences that subvert your ultimate goal. Certainly, we've had a lot of great progress, even in this interim space where we've worked on some of these collateral issues and then had to work through a couple of unintended consequences and work around them. So I think we continue to take steps in that direction, and we're not waiting for the plan to get off the ground or work. We'll be contributing to it, I think, along the way.
Thank you. That's very helpful for me.
I'd just like to add from my experience with similar work groups like this, it's going to be a number of you at this table who are on this work group or your staff. And just in the conversations, you're going to identify things like really easy things that can be changed. Like maybe it's the way orders are processed and get to the jail, or how some other information is received. And you realize once you start talking, oh, we could make that so much more efficient. And maybe that is contributing to why someone's not getting notified about court or whatever it is. And then you can just fix that right away. That the person sitting at the table goes back to their office and says, this is something we could change and it would make a difference. So those little changes can be made at any time throughout this process. It's not like you have to wait to take it to the CJCC.
Additional comments, discussion? To your point, Julie, I think that's part of what has been a collateral benefit of the CJCC is that it's created it's forced us all to sit in a room and see each other more frequently in a formal setting, but I think it's also created conversations that have generated additional conversations outside of the CJCC meetings about some of these issues and generated energy behind improvements and innovation that which has been a great byproduct, I think.
I would agree. I mean, I just want to say, I think, you know, as we've been forming, right, this group and everyone's been sort of thinking about what is the purpose, right? And why are we all here? And what's the outcome going to be? I think, you know, we are seeing some of those natural things happen. And I think I just wanted to, I know we talked about it a lot and I just wanted to like bring it to the table because I think I just want to make sure everybody's fully understanding that natural things will just happen. And,
Yes.
you know, we won't be waiting for the next CJC to get formal approval, but right, wanting to be inform the group and keep everybody abreast of things that are going on.
I think that's a shared understanding. Everyone has that shared understanding. I'm seeing all the nods. Okay. Then we have a motion. Any further discussion as to priority area 3? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Priority area 3 will stand as drafted then. Thank you to Gabby and Amy. I believe that this concludes your section of our meeting. Any additional comments for us? You did walk us through your next steps. If you just want to recap those as you close for this morning.
Sure, absolutely. So thank you all for being here, and you made this so easy. I can't believe how quickly that went, and we don't have a list of edits to go back to. But we will take the action plans and put them into a full strategic plan, which will have a lot more information included. We'll provide that to you by or before May 11th. You should have plenty of time to read that. Give us any feedback. Because it will have more information and more detail, you might have additional feedback after reading that. And we'll make those edits, and then June 9th will be the date for approval.
So the group should expect to receive that plan around May 11th, and then the deadline to provide the feedback to you will be May 27th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then for the group, then expect an agenda item for the June 9th meeting to be action to approve the final strategic plan as presented by JMI. Any additional comments or questions for Amy or Gabby before we thank them for their time this morning? All right, hearing none, thank you both. Greatly appreciate JMI's partnership throughout this process. I also want to note that we have stayed on time and on track for this strategic plan as well. So congrats to everyone for committing their time and energy of themselves and their staff to this. We are right on target, so I appreciate that. You're welcome to stay for the rest of our agenda, but again, thank you to you both. Next item on the agenda is the TAD grant funding update. Andy had asked for some time on the agenda to speak to the group as to this topic. Andy?
Yeah, thank you. 2026 is a competitive grant application year for the Treatment Alternatives and Diversion Grant, which currently funds primarily the drug diversion program and some components or ancillary services for drug treatment court. That grant is competitive every 5 years. We'll provide funding then realistically January of 27 to December of 31. DOJ requires that we seek the local CJCC's approval or other oversight body. Up until this point, we've been reviewing those grant application plans and seeking the approval of our Washington County Drug Treatment Coordinating Committee. Now that we have a established and fully and effectively operating CJCC, we would love to seek the approval and get the blessing of the CJCC for that grant application. So tomorrow we plan to review that plan for the grant to fund those programs over the next 5 years with the coordinating committee, and then we would like to bring that to the CJCC in June at our next meeting. We expect the grant to be released in June, and application to be due sometime in fall.
Andy, oh, go ahead.
Just curious about the type of grant it is. Is it 100% funded, or is there a shared portion that the county would need to participate in?
Yes, thank you. There's a county match, which the grant describes as 25% Math is not my field of expertise, but somehow it seems to work out to 33% of the total. So I'm not quite sure how they do that, but I'll let someone who specializes in that maybe explain it better than I can.
Yeah, I can't speak to the math part, but essentially right now you can do, I mean, we're providing a county match. You can do a cash match or you can do an in-kind match. We're currently doing an in-kind match through Andy's salary.
Thank you.
So just to flesh this out a bit, this is one of the diversion programs that we learned about when we did that foundational training a couple of meetings ago. This would be continuation of funding, so of a funding source to continue this program. The group that has worked on this funding plan has been meeting as a work group for some time, working on revisiting structure, et cetera, of the program. I believe they'll be presenting on that tomorrow at the what we call the Cjcc, the coordinating committee meeting, and then proposing their plan for the grant. Then it would be this group's opportunity to take a look at it at the June meeting as well. What the Department of Justice, Wisconsin Department of Justice expects is that this group have some oversight on it as well and take action on it as part of the grant process. So Department of Justice wants to see your local Cjcc approve of the grant that is being submitted to them. Previously, we accomplished that by way of the oversight committee taking care of that. Wondering if anyone has any opposition or concerns about including that on the June agenda. By the point it gets in front of you, it will have been in front of the work group, which, who's on the work group? Julie, Attorney Bratz, Agent Cannon, and Andy Freeman. Anybody else? Maybe some members of your offices? Okay. So half the Cjcc apparently, or a third of it. Then it'll go to the coordinating committee tomorrow for discussion, which is a wider membership of the varying agencies, and then it will come to you as well.
If I can just add, Supervisor Schwab, just for your insight, then after all of that, we will take it to the Health and Human Services Committee and the County Board for approval of applying for the grant and receipt of the grant.
Thank you.
And then we still have to convince the Department of Justice to award us the grant. So after all of that, but yeah.
Question about the competitive grant. So is it that you put in for it and you get it versus a certain amount of money in the pot that's been included that could be less than what you actually put in for it?
Both, I imagine. I don't know how. I think it would be incredibly low likelihood that we would not be awarded. But there is a total available dollar amount allocated from the state budget available to all counties that apply. So it is possible that we don't get 100% of what we asked for. I believe we have received, there's a fairly consistent understanding in terms of what we're likely to receive. To give us an idea of where we should set our budget that we think is realistic. And I think that's always, those two have always been in line, what the state maybe projects and what we apply for, and then what Washington County receives.
Yeah, I would just add, I mean, this is GPR funded, and so there's usually like a set amount. So they essentially say, Washington County, you get this much. But then sometimes so it's like you apply for 5 years, but every year we still have to reapply, if that makes any sense. And sometimes they say, oh, and there's an extra $10,000 this year, $20,000, but typically it's a set amount per county at the application time.
Any additional questions about the topic? All right, so then hearing no objections or concerns, then we'll add it to the June agenda for the group to consider as well. That will satisfy Department of Justice's interest in having this group review that grant application before it is submitted to them. Okay, that brings us to the close of our agenda. I believe our next meeting is June 9th at 7:30. I think I have the date right. June 9th, Brad? Okay, then I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Then I will assume we are all in agreement. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.